I gave her everything, my time, my name, my dreams. Hell, I even gave her the job she cried about for years. And what did I get in return? A knife in the back. Slowly, silently, she twisted it and smiled while doing it. Amelia wasn't just my wife. She was my partner in every sense of the word. She was the woman who once stayed up with me through sleepless nights while I built my tech company from scratch. The woman who cheered the loudest when I landed my first investor. The woman I trusted more than anyone. So when she asked, no, begged, for a bigger role in the company after our divorce, I said yes. Stupid, I know. We had separated on good terms, or so I believed. She claimed she still respected me. Said the marriage failed, not us as people. We agreed to remain civil, professional even. I still cared about her happiness, and she said she still believed in my vision. So when she told me that working again, really working, would give her purpose, I handed her the keys to her dream job. Head of marketing. Full control of a department with millions in budget. A seat at the executive table. Access. And within 3 months, I saw signs. Weird whispers in meetings. Cold stares from long-trusted employees. Delays in reports. Strange vendor invoices. And then, one night, I opened a company email she accidentally forwarded to me. The subject line? Phase 2. Replacing him. I sat there, numb, staring at the screen while the world around me crumbled. She wasn't trying to rebuild her life. She was trying to steal mine. And the worst part? She almost got away with it. My name is Rayan Malik. I'm 34 years old, and I built one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. CoreSync, from a one-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and no Wi-Fi. I didn't come from money, I came from grit. Immigrant parents who worked 2 jobs, a scholarship that almost slipped away, and years of ramen noodles and rejection emails. But I never stopped building, never stopped believing. And for a while, it seemed like I had it all. Success, respect, and love. I met Amelia at a startup pitch event when I was 27. She was on the panel, sharp-tongued, stylish, and unafraid to call out the flaws in my pitch deck in front of a full room. I should have been embarrassed, but instead, I was captivated. She had this fire in her, the way she analyzed ideas, the way she challenged me like no one else had. After the event, I caught her outside the venue, under a flickering streetlight. She was smoking a cigarette and typing furiously on her phone. I asked if she always made founders cry. She smiled without looking up. Only the ones who can't handle the truth. We went for coffee that night. That turned into dinner. Then weekends, then years. Amelia wasn't easy to love, but she was addictive. Passionate, fearless. She had ideas bigger than the room and ambition larger than life. She had worked in marketing for big brands but hated corporate politics. She wanted something real. So when I finally launched CoreSync, she joined me unofficially. Late-night brainstorms, mock presentations, color schemes, and taglines over takeout. We got married after 2 years. A small wedding, just 50 guests, and a lot of wine. I remember how her voice cracked during her vows. I thought it was love. Looking back, maybe it was calculation. The truth is, I was so focused on building something meaningful, I ignored the warning signs. Amelia wanted control, not just in our relationship, but everywhere. She questioned every hire I made, every feature I approved, every penny we spent, even when she wasn't officially part of the company yet. At the time, I told myself it was just her being passionate, that she cared, that she was pushing me to be better. But sometimes, what looks like support is just surveillance in disguise. After 5 years of marriage, we started to drift. I was always at work. She said she felt invisible. I tried harder, but the harder I tried, the colder she became. The connection we once had turned into boardroom briefings, scheduled dinners, arguments about what's next. Then came the separation. It was clean, or so I thought. No screaming matches, no public fallout. We told our friends it was mutual. We even hugged when we signed the papers. She moved out, I stayed in the apartment near HQ, and life moved on until she came back. 3 months later, she showed up at my office with a soft smile and a polished resume. Said she needed a second chance, not at us, but at her career. Said she missed being part of something that mattered. I told myself I owed her that. After all, she had helped me when no one else did. She believed in CoreSync before anyone else saw its worth. So I gave her the job. I thought I was giving her redemption. Turns out I handed her the match she'd used to set everything on fire. It started with little things. A quiet shift in energy. A meeting where Amelia interrupted me to present a strategy I hadn't even approved. An old friend, my COO, Tanya, resigning without warning. Her only explanation? It doesn't feel like the same company anymore. At first, I chalked it up to growing pains. Amelia had only been back for 6 weeks, and her ideas were actually impressive. We were scaling fast, and she helped revamp our brand in ways that attracted serious investor attention. I was grateful, but something didn't sit right. One night, I walked into a team dinner late. Everyone had already ordered. Laughter filled the private room, Amelia at the center, glass in hand, smiling wide. The team looked at her the way they used to look at me. She didn't notice me at first. Then, as if remembering I was the CEO, she gave a small nod. Polite, distant. I told myself I was overthinking. Until a week later, during a budget review, I noticed something strange. A $58,000 payment to a consulting agency I didn't recognize. Maven Collective. It was listed under Brand Outreach. Normally, those approvals came through me. I called Amelia. She didn't answer. I walked down to her office. She was in a meeting with my head of product, 2 engineers, and someone I didn't recognize. When she saw me, her body stiffened. "Can it wait, Rayan?" she asked. Too sweet, too rehearsed. "I just need 5 minutes." She reluctantly stepped outside. "What's Maven Collective?" I asked. She blinked. "Just a creative agency. We needed them for the international rollout. They're good." "You approved a $58,000 payment without looping me in?" Her smile thinned. "You gave me full autonomy. That's what you said." I stared at her, stunned. Was she gaslighting me now? "I said autonomy within budget limits and with communication. This isn't how we operate." She folded her arms. "Maybe it's time we operate differently." I left her office with a bad taste in my mouth. That night, I stayed back at the office, digging through expense reports and email logs. I kept telling myself I was just being paranoid, that maybe Amelia really was just trying to help the company evolve. But the deeper I looked, the clearer the cracks became. Memos I'd never seen, with my digital signature. New vendor contracts. Meetings held without my knowledge. And worst of all, a private Slack channel. It wasn't hard to find. One of our junior developers accidentally left it open on a shared screen. Its name? Next Era Leadership. My hands froze on the keyboard. I clicked it. There were only 5 members. Amelia, my CFO, my lead strategist, one of our major investors, and the new consultant from Maven Collective. The last message was from Amelia, sent that very afternoon. "Don't worry, he still thinks I'm just here to help. The board's next. If we get them, it's over." Over? Over what? I leaned back in my chair, my heart hammering in my chest. Amelia wasn't just building a new vision. She was building a coup. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there in my office, staring at the Slack messages, reading them over and over again, as if a new meaning would suddenly reveal itself. He still thinks I'm just here to help. I wanted to believe it was some twisted joke. Maybe I'd misread the context. Maybe he wasn't even me. But the sinking weight in my gut told me otherwise. I couldn't just confront her. Not yet. If she was bold enough to type that out in a semi-private company channel, then whatever she was planning, it was deeper than I realized, more calculated, and worse, she wasn't alone. Some of the names in that chat were people I trusted, people who'd been with Core Sync from the early days, people who'd helped me survive the brutal first 2 years when we had no money, no traction, and no idea if the next version of our product would crash or fly. Had they all turned? Or was this a misunderstanding spiraling in my head? I opened a blank notepad and wrote out names, drew arrows, highlighted roles, looked at who had access to what. I tried to piece together a timeline, but the deeper I went, the more my mind twisted itself into knots. Was Amelia playing a long game? Since the moment she walked back into that office? Was she planning this before the divorce? That thought burned the worst. I remembered how she used to sit on the floor in my old apartment, surrounded by crumpled post-it notes, sketching branding ideas for our MVP launch. The nights she brewed me coffee at 3 a.m. The time she sold her designer watch to help us pay for a software license we couldn't afford. Was that all real? Or just a performance? The next morning I walked into the office like nothing had happened, smiled, greeted the team, nodded at Amelia when she passed me in the hallway. She was wearing navy today, hair tied back, eyes full of strategy. She didn't flinch. Either she was a master liar, or I was losing my mind. Later that afternoon I called an old friend, Zayan, one of my first mentors and a former venture partner. He picked up on the first ring. "You sound like hell," he said before I even spoke. "Yeah," I muttered. "Listen, if someone was trying to take your company out from under you, but you didn't have proof, just whispers, fragments, what would you do?" He was quiet for a beat. Then, "You build the proof. Silently, carefully, and you don't tip your hand until your hammer's over their head." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "What if it's someone you used to love?" He sighed. "Then you swing the hammer harder." That night, I installed keystroke tracking on my own executive terminal, started logging Slack exports, quietly looped in Tanya, the ex-COO who left. She agreed to meet over dinner. Her first words after sitting down? "I knew it. I knew something was off. I just didn't want to believe she'd do it." I blinked. "You're talking about Amelia?" Tanya nodded slowly. "It wasn't just her attitude. She started having backdoor meetings with vendors, telling them your vision was outdated. Said she was preparing Core Sync for the future. I couldn't work in that environment. It felt like a setup." A setup! The word hit like a bullet. I walked back home that night with my chest burning. I wanted to call Amelia, scream at her, ask her why. Why betray me? Why pretend? Why wear that fake smile every day? But I didn't. I kept silent. Because if she thought I was clueless, I had one final advantage. She didn't know I was watching now. She thought the king was asleep, but I was very much awake. And I was done playing nice. A week later, just when I thought I'd seen the worst of it, I discovered something that made everything before feel like a warm-up. I had my assistant, Noor, one of the few people I still trusted, dig into the Maven Collective. I told her I needed a background check for due diligence. Nothing too detailed. She came back to me the next morning, pale-faced, holding a folder. "You're going to want to sit down for this." I did. Inside were screenshots, registration documents, email trails. Maven Collective wasn't a third-party agency. It was Amelia's, under a shell company, MCL Consulting Limited, registered in her mother's maiden name. But the mailing address? Her current penthouse suite. The lead strategist on their website? Amelia herself, just with a fake last name. And the consultant she'd brought in to help CoreSync's branding? Her new boyfriend? I stared at the papers in disbelief. "You're sure this is legit?" I asked. Noor nodded. "Triple-checked." My head spun. So not only had Amelia inserted herself into my company again, she was secretly billing us through a fake agency, run by herself. She was bleeding the business from both ends. And the worst part? She'd backdated the contracts, made it look like Maven had been working with us for months, possibly even during our divorce settlement, which meant the entire "I just want to help you rebuild" act? A lie. The co-founder who cried in my office 3 months ago saying she missed the vision. She wasn't trying to rebuild. She was trying to take over and get paid while doing it. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just betrayal, it was fraud. Personal, professional, strategic. She hadn't just broken my trust, she'd weaponized our entire history against me. I remembered how she begged me just 6 months ago to give her another shot. "Let me prove I can be your partner again," she said, "not just in love, but in purpose." I gave her that chance. I let her back into the one place I built from the ground up, brick by brick, through blood and sleepless nights. And she was dismantling it from within. But it got worse. That night, Tanya called me. Her voice was shaky. "Rayan, I just got a call from someone on the board. An emergency vote is being scheduled. Tomorrow." My stomach dropped. "Vote for what?" They didn't say it outright, but from what I heard, it's about leadership transition. Leadership. I stood up so fast my chair tipped backward. It wasn't just a coup, it was a hostile takeover. And it was happening tomorrow. I had 12 hours. 12 hours to stop the woman I once loved from stealing everything I had left. The boardroom was cold, literally and metaphorically. 12 people sat around the long glass table, each of them flipping through the agenda with faux professionalism. But I could feel it. Beneath the surface, the tension was electric. Amelia walked in like she owned the place, dressed in cream white, clipboard in hand, smile polished. She didn't even glance at me as she took her seat, directly across from mine. I watched her place her notes neatly in front of her, as if this was just another branding review, not a corporate ambush. The chairperson, an old investor named Naveed, cleared his throat. "All right. Before we move into general updates, Amelia has requested to present a proposal under executive review." My jaw clenched. So it was official. She was going to do it. "Thank you," Amelia began, standing smoothly. "I appreciate your time today. I know this is unexpected, but I believe it's time we rethink CoreSync's leadership direction to protect long-term growth and investor value." She said it so calmly, so rationally, like she wasn't betraying the man who built this company from nothing. Like she hadn't filed false contracts, manipulated the team, and backstabbed the only person who still believed in her. She kept speaking, something about scalability, outdated vision, the need for brand evolution under modern leadership. Her voice was steady, but I saw it. The flicker. A brief, smug glint in her eye when she said, "under a new executive team." That was my cue. I stood. "I'd like to respond," I said flatly. Amelia nodded, cool, composed. "Of course." I picked up the remote and tapped the screen behind me. A slideshow lit up. Slide 1. MCL Consulting Limited. Owner. Registered under a false identity. Address, her personal residence. Whispers erupted around the table. Slide 2. CoreSync invoices. Dated. Signed. Linked to Maven Collective. Slide 3. Screenshots, Slack messages, financial trails, boardroom calendar invites with her consultant, aka her boyfriend. By slide 5, the room was dead silent. Amelia's face had drained of color. I turned to the board. You were about to vote me out based on her narrative. But what you weren't told is that she's been secretly siphoning money from CoreSync using a shell company. She's lied, she's committed fraud, and she's done it under the guise of rebuilding trust. I looked at her, this time directly. No filter. I gave you everything, Amelia. The company, the dream job, another chance to make things right. Her eyes shimmered, not with guilt, but with fury. You were always too emotional to lead, she snapped. You built this company on obsession. You think CoreSync is your baby, but it needs a brain now, not a bleeding heart. I stepped closer. And yet somehow, the bleeding heart caught the snake before it bit the board. She took a step back. You don't get to call me a snake, she hissed. I stared into her eyes. You bit me first. Silence. Naveed finally spoke. We'll need to pause this session for a formal investigation. Amelia tried to interject, but he raised a hand. No more words today. You'll receive instructions from legal. She stood frozen, for once, speechless. And in that moment, I saw it. The real her. Not the dreamer who once painted our future on coffee shop napkins, but the strategist who'd rather burn it all down than let someone else hold the match. Amelia never came back to CoreSync. The legal team moved fast after the board meeting. Once my evidence was verified, she was served a cease and desist within 24 hours, and a formal lawsuit followed. She tried to deny it all, of course, called me manipulative, bitter, accused me of forging the documents. But the paper trail was airtight. Too many people had seen the truth. Her shell company dissolved within the week. The consultant boyfriend vanished into silence. And the woman who once stood at the top of our empire? She faded from the tech scene like a ghost. I won, but it didn't feel like victory. For days, I couldn't sit still. I kept going back to the beginning, trying to figure out where it all started falling apart. Was it when she asked for space and I gave it too easily? Was it when I invited her back in, thinking a shared past meant shared loyalty? I kept replaying her words in that boardroom. You were always too emotional to lead. Maybe I was. Maybe trusting her again was emotional. But if I hadn't, I would have never seen the truth. I sat in my office one night, long after everyone had gone home. The city blinked outside the windows, cold and still. On my desk sat the old mug she once gave me. Hustle harder, dream bigger. I laughed bitterly. It was chipped now, just like us, just like the dream we once built. But strangely, that night didn't end in anger. It ended in clarity. I realized I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning the version of me who still believed in her. And maybe that version needed to go. Because when I stopped seeing Amelia as a lost love and started seeing her as a lesson, something shifted. I got back to work. Real work. I restructured CoreSync from the ground up, hired fresh blood, promoted Noor, who'd stood by me when everything crumbled. I turned that nightmare into a case study, one I later shared at leadership panels. Don't let history cloud your judgment, I said in one keynote. Sometimes the person who helped you build the castle comes back to burn it. People clapped, some even cried, but I never said her name. She didn't deserve the credit, or the blame. Months passed, then a year. CoreSync grew again, this time cleaner, leaner, smarter. As for Amelia, last I heard, she moved abroad, tried launching something new in Dubai, but word travels fast in this industry. Investors weren't as forgiving. She built her legacy on illusion. I built mine on survival. One rainy afternoon, as I walked past the old coffee shop where we first drafted our company's pitch deck, I paused outside. The place had new owners, new name, same windows. A young couple sat by the corner table where she once told me she'd never let go of our dream. They were laughing, heads close, eyes full of ambition. It stung for a second, but then I smiled. Let them dream. Let them believe. Just not blindly. I walked on. Some stories don't need revenge. Some wounds don't need salt. Sometimes, the deepest win is walking away without bitterness and never looking back. Final line. She wanted my company. I gave her her dream job, but what she never realized was that I was always the dream.